How to play Settlers of Catan. 3 to 4 players, playtime 60 minutes. In Catan, or formerly known as Settlers of Catan, players take turns rolling for resources, while everyone collects them based on corresponding number tokens they are adjacent to, trading resources with other players, building roads, settlements, and cities, and buying and playing development cards. Players gain points by building settlements, then upgrading them to cities, having the longest road, the largest army, and by playing victory point development cards if it would trigger a win. The first player to reach 10 or more points on their turn wins. Components: terrain hexes and the sea frame, harbor tokens, number tokens, ore, grain, lumber, wool, and brick resource cards, development cards, the longest road and largest army cards, settlements, cities, and roads, 2 dice, and the robber. Setup: pick a color. Each player chooses a color, then puts all those pieces in front of them. Building the island. If this is your first time playing, set up the board like this. If you have settled Catan before, you can set up a variable map by shuffling the terrain hexes, then place them inside the sea frame. Then randomly place the harbor tokens over the spots on the frame. Take the 18 number tokens, beginning with the letter A, and place them on each terrain hex, alphabetically, beginning at the corner of the board, moving counterclockwise. As you lay the tokens, skip the desert and place the robber there instead. You could also do this randomly, just make sure there aren't any 2 red tokens next to each other. Other stuff. Place the resource cards, development cards, longest road, and largest army next to the board. Every player then rolls the dice. Whoever gets the highest number goes first. Starting with the first player, place 1 settlement on an empty intersection as well as a connecting road. Then continue clockwise until each player has placed 2 settlements in their corresponding roads. Keep in mind that you may only place a settlement in an open intersection, and it must not be adjacent to another settlement. Get off my land! 10 overview. On your turn, you will roll the dice for everyone to collect resources, trade resources with other players, build roads, settlements, or upgrade cities, and buy and or play a development card. Resource production. The active player rolls the 2 dice once, then all players collect 1 resource card for each settlement or 2 for each city that touches a hex with a matching number token. For example, the player rolls an 8, which matches a field and a forest hex. The field has a blue settlement and a white city next to it, so the blue player will draw 1 grain card and the white player draws 2 grain cards since they have a city. For the forest hex, the blue player will draw 2 lumber cards since they have 2 settlements next to it. If the dice roll is a 7, then a few things happen. If anyone has more than 7 resource cards, they have to immediately discard half of them, rounding down. So this guy has 9 resource cards and will have to choose 4 to discard. Note that this does not include development cards. Then the active player moves the robber to another hex. That hex is now blocked from producing resources, so in future turns if that number is rolled, you cannot produce resources from that hex. Oh man! Finally, after all cards are discarded, the active player steals 1 resource card from a player that has a settlement or a city next to the robber. If there are multiple players, choose only 1 to steal from. If you roll a number that isn't next to any settlements or cities, then no one produces resources. Oh shoot, I wanted that. Trade. There are 2 types of trading in Catan, domestic and maritime. Domestic trade. On your turn, you can trade any amount of resources with the other players, but you cannot trade for the same resource. For example, 2 wool for 1 wool, which wouldn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Each trade must include the active player, so the other players cannot trade amongst themselves at this time. A maritime trade. You can also trade 4 identical resources for 1 of any other resource. If you have a settlement or a city on a harbor, you can trade the indicated resource at a better ratio. For example, this player controls a 3-to-1 harbor that allows them to trade 3 identical resources for 1 instead of 4. This player controls a grain harbor, so they can trade 2 grains for 1 of another resource. Building. You can gain victory points and other benefits by spending resource cards to build roads, settlements, upgrade to cities, and buy development cards. Roads. You may pay a brick and a lumber to build a road and place it on a path that connects to one of your settlements, cities, or one of your other roads. If you are the first player to build a continuous road with at least 5 segments, you get to take the longest road card, worth 2 victory points. However, if another player builds a road that is at least 1 segment longer than yours, then they will take the longest road card from you, and they will gain the 2 points instead, causing you to lose them. Haha! Settlements! You can pay a brick, lumber, grain, and a wool to build a settlement worth 1 victory point. You must place this settlement on an empty intersection that is connected to one of your roads and is at least 2 intersections away from any other settlements or cities. Settlements are worth 1 victory point and give you 1 resource card when producing resources from adjacent hexes. Cities. You can pay 2 grains and 3 ore to upgrade a settlement to a city, now worth 2 victory points, and you can collect 2 resource cards when producing from adjacent hexes. Development cards. To buy a development card, pay a wool, grain, and an ore, then draw the top card from the deck and keep it hidden from other players. You may buy multiple development cards during your turn, but you can only play 1 per turn. There are 3 types of development cards: Knight, Progress, and Victory Point cards. Knight cards allow you to move the robber and steal 1 resource card from a player with a settlement or city adjacent to the robber's new location. Kinda like the rolling a 7 or whatever. You keep the knight cards face up on the table, and the first person to play 3 knights gets the largest army card worth 2 victory points. If any other player has 1 more knight than the current largest army, that player takes the largest army card and now has the 2 points instead. Progress cards have different effects on the game. Just follow the instructions, then remove that card from the game. Victory point cards must stay hidden until you have enough of them in order to reach 10 points or more. Then you can reveal all of them on your turn to claim your victory. Ending the game. If you have 10 or more points on your turn, the game ends and you win. If it's not your turn, you must wait until your turn to claim victory. Hold them horses right there. It ain't your turn now, buddy. The end. Thank you for watching. If you found this tutorial helpful, please like and subscribe below. Also, let us know what you thought in the comments, and if you have any suggestions for future tutorials, put them there too. If you like looking at pictures, follow board game tutorials on TikTok and Instagram.